Thanks, sir. Thank you. Can you get the benches set up? Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin the service. Following pallbearers, the grandchildren, please come forward. Stephanie and Jordan, Michelle and Brandon, Zachary and Carter, an honorary Cadillac. Also, can I ask Matt, Josh, and Michael to please come forward? Okay, one more time, if you'll lift the casket. Watch your feet as they pull the rollers out. And then place the casket up on top of the rollers. Please come and be seated, family up in front. As you're making your way up to the tent, can I ask everyone, when you're able to please put your cell phones into silent mode. What's that? Is it okay to put them here? Yeah. Okay. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a telephone, please put it to silent mode. The service is going to be conducted by Rabbi Paul Cohen.
Dear friends, before we begin this memorial tribute of love to Wallace Christenholz's memory and to his life, and we have a ritual that we perform. The ritual is called Kriya. It's a Hebrew word that literally means a tearing, and it comes to us from the Bible, from our ancestor Jacob. When he was told by his sons that his beloved Joseph had been killed, he tore the coat that he was wearing. It was a sign of grief and sadness, to be sure, but also a sign of the confusion and sometimes even the anger that we feel when someone we love is taken from our midst. And so at a time when it is perhaps most difficult to offer words of blessing, we're actually given words to recite before we tear the ribbon, also an outward sign to those that you'll meet in the coming day that May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. Be acceptable in your sight. God, our rock and our Redeemer. God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Our tradition teaches us that words that come from the heart go straight to the heart. As we continue this tribute of love to Wally's life, it is fitting that we begin with the words of his family. We'll be hearing first from two of his sons, Steve and Jeff, and then granddaughters, Michelle and Stephanie, and then brother-in-law, Michael.
Wally was born and raised in Chicago. He graduated from Senn High School in 1957, where he met the love of his life, Carol. He earned his bachelor's degree in accounting from the University of Illinois and got married to Carol on June 25th, 1961. Together, they settled in Chicago and raised their 3 boys. Wally's first real job was working as a CPA for an accounting firm called Altshuler, Melvoin and Glasser. He worked there for more than 20 years, eventually becoming a partner. However, Wally never liked the commute and the long hours at the firm, so he left to open his own small consulting business. He continued to do consulting into his 70s. The consulting was not just for his clients, though. Family and friends would come to rely on Wally's advice and counsel as well. Wally's thoughtful and methodical approach to life, along with his intelligent, funny, and caring personality, drew people to him. I cannot count the number of times that I've heard people say, Wally was my favorite, fill in the blank, uncle, cousin, whatever. Seeing Wally huddled in a corner with a cold, awful cup of coffee in his hand, talking softly to someone about starting a business, changing jobs, or just planning their retirement was a common occurrence at our house. Wally also loved to travel, almost always with Carol, not just back and forth between Chicago and Phoenix to spend time with their family, or to Las Vegas to visit their money, but really all over the world. They went to Israel, Greece, Australia, England, France, Poland, just to name a few. It makes me smile when I picture them in their matching jean shirt jackets, I guess I would call them, that they frequently wore. Wally walking several feet ahead of the much shorter Carol, who needed 2 steps for every one of his to keep up. And then posing for photos with their perfect smiles. Seriously, who is that photogenic? For those who don't know, take a look at the photos that we posted. It's ridiculous. Wally also loved crossword puzzles, theater, music, books, playing tennis, watching sports, particularly the Chicago teams, which includes the White Sox, not the Cubs. Sorry, Cubs fans. Of course, Wally also enjoyed playing cards with the guys from high school, playing poker with his friends at Gidwitz, and playing video poker with really anyone. He didn't play to make money. He played to beat the system. Wally's game was to find and play the video poker machines with the lowest house edge and then combine comped rooms and buffets at different hotels to create a free trip, even if it meant changing hotels 6 or 7 times during a 2-week trip. We would like to express our deepest gratitude for all the love and support that Wally and my family have received during the last several years. In particular, we'd like to thank the team of people, especially all the caregivers, whose tireless work, skill, devotion, and love enabled Wally to continue to live life on his own terms for as long as possible. Wally's passing leaves a huge void in our lives. I miss him so much already. Bye, Dad. Rest in peace. Thank you.
I feel like this poem that was written by Devon McAlvey called Playing the Hand describes my dad's personality, philosophy of life. Everyone is dealt a hand, but you decide how it's played. You must play this game with little to no aid. No one knows the rules, however, some say there are none. There is said to be no winners, but you can only know when you're done. This hand is unique to you, so there is no way to cheat. This is no competition, so there is no one to defeat. The game is hard to play, but play as well as you can, for we are forced to play this game when dealt a cruel hand. Dad had a great ability to play the hand that he was dealt throughout his life. Career, marriage, family, milestones, dealing with my mom's illness, plus a move to Chicago with his declining health in the past few years. The last few months, we made the most of a dealt hand by traveling to Arizona in August for a bar mitzvah, trips to Rivers Casino, watching painful Bears games, plus visits with family and friends. I would like to thank everyone for the love and support during this difficult time.
I don't know how many people that have been fortunate to have their grandfather around well into their adulthood. Wally was 46 when I was born, which allowed us to spend a lot of time together. He formed a bond with my husband and my 2 girls, and for that I am so grateful. With that long-lasting relationship brings such a heavy loss for me. Behind his booming voice was a very kind, thoughtful, and caring person. Family was always Wally's main priority, and is a value that he has instilled in me. Even though he lived halfway across the country, he and Nana were always there for any small performance or big event in my life. Although at the time I was slightly embarrassed of his 6-foot frame waving with both arms in a crowd to get my attention, it is a lasting memory I will always revisit to remember him. My relationship with him will always be something I hold close to my heart.
Stephanie asked me to read this on her behalf. Today we come together to celebrate and remember someone who was more than a grandfather. He was Wally. From the start, he insisted on being called by his first name. After all, he became a grandfather in his early 40s, and Wally just suited him perfectly. Wally was always there for us, coffee cup in hand, ready to offer his direct and sincere advice. He never had to guess where he stood. His honesty was one of his greatest strengths. Whether we needed guidance or just someone to talk to, he had a way of cutting through the noise and saying exactly what needed to be heard. We will miss his smile and his unforgettable Wally goodbye that became a tradition all its own. He taught us by example how to face life with wisdom, using an analytical eye and a touch of humor. He built a life full of love, laughter, connection, showing us how important it is to truly be present for the people we care about. His legacy isn't just in the memories we share, but in the lessons he taught us that will guide us forever. Michael?
Thank you. Carol and Wally got married exactly 6 months before Phyllis and I did. And consequently, David is exactly 6 months older than Matt. And therefore, they lived a block away from us for a long time when we were relative newlyweds and starting our families. And we spent many an evening in the third floor apartment on Estes, because they had a bigger living room with a blanket spread on the floor, two little guys laying on the blanket, and we thought we were playing bridge. That's what we thought we were doing. And we played those nights, and the game ended when Carol fell asleep. That was always the rule. And sometimes she fell asleep between bidding, but that was the rule. And if you want to know Wally's disposition, how even it was and fine, imagine playing bridge together all those years. Not a voice was raised, not a card was thrown across the table. We later developed a kind of a tennis relationship, the four of us. Wally and I played every Monday night, and the four of us, Phyllis and Carol joining us, would play doubles. And we decided one day to go to a tennis camp. And we went to a tennis camp up in Michigan, and as we drove in, one of the instructors was tied to a tree, and the others were playing chase and tie the instructor. That was strike one. Strike two, the new tennis courts were laid out. They were gorgeous. Didn't have any lines on them, however. That was strike two. Dinner was tuna fish and Wonder Bread. That was strike three. We left. We said we want our money back. And Wally stayed calm. Nobody got excited. Nobody I know of. And Wally said, you know, we've got babysitters and we've got a weekend. Let's go somewhere. So we called, there were no cell phones then, believe it or not. And we called the Holiday Inn on Toohey and Edens, got rooms for the weekend, called the Edens Tennis Club, rented tennis courts for the weekend, got instructors for the weekend. And we went and had a weekend of meals, lots of tennis and muscles pulled and so on. And we thought we were ready for Wimbledon. And we were, because Carol and Wally made it to Wimbledon. And they bought tickets also to the U.S. Open in New York all the time. So that was kind of, we vicariously lived through that. But the thing, one of the most important qualities I have in Wally is he said something, he meant it. If he said he would do it, he did it. If he said you shouldn't do it, he also meant it. It's just, from the beginning, we used to have, I'm gonna call them deals, my wife hates the word, but when they were in their apartment, we were in ours, made a deal to buy a second-hand air conditioner to cool off their apartment. It was the size of a Volkswagen and weighed more than a Volkswagen, and we hauled it up 3 flights of stairs, got it in there, and then both of us missed the next week's work. It was terrible. We also, one day, his car, he called us one morning, a fire hydrant broke. The water had frozen his car in. All 4 tires were in ice. And we very carefully extricated them from the ice. In the process, flattened all 4 of them. And we ended up going to a gas station and making a deal to give them those 4 tires and $10 each for 4 recap tires. So we began to see that the world was we could talk to it, and he talked to it in a special way. And when you think about these things and the responsibilities, you know, there are, Wally is here. We're talking about memories, but we really should be honoring him. He in each of our lives, and he was either a son, he was a brother, he was a husband, a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather, an uncle, a great-uncle, a cousin, a son-in-law, a brother-in-law. In every role you could think he had in your life, he was the prototype of what that person should be. He cared. He cared so much, and he solved problems. And we were together in many transactions over 55 years, and we did a handshake and a phone call as it ever took. It never took anything more complicated than that. And that's what we're really talking about. And to the guys, to David and Steve, and to Jeff and Peggy, getting into that bar mitzvah in August was such a welcome, such a blessing for all of us. And here's last casino visit a few weeks ago, And my son Josh and I and Matt, we'd always laugh because he was the only person I know that got royal flushes. But it was on nickel machines. I mean, I couldn't. We don't want to think about it. But the royal flush was kind of like his imprimatur, right on his shirt. It should have been. But this is a man who lived life for others and for himself. And I always thank my sister for bringing a brother into my life. He never had a brother, and I didn't. So we were brothers to each other. A good man. Thank you.
One of Wally's closest friends, David Shaw, right there, asked me to read this for him. I first met Wally in an advanced algebra class our sophomore year at Senn High School. That meeting developed into a close relationship that lasted more than 70 years. My memories include frequent poker games at the dining room table in Morton Grove, going to Bears games in the freezing cold, and talking about what we would do when we retired. We put together reunions with our high school friends, 12 in all, for several years until it became difficult for some to travel. After retirement, we didn't see each other as often due to Wally and Carol moving to Arizona, but our close friendship never weakened. When Wally moved back to Chicago several years ago, I was thrilled so that I could see him more often. Susie drove me to Gidwitz every Wednesday so that Wally and I could visit. Those visits became so important to me. I always looked forward to Wednesdays with Wally. I will miss him so much, but I'm grateful for the time we had. Wally, my friend, you are now with Carol, the love of your life. May you rest in peace.
A beloved husband to Carol for 59 years. Cherished father to David and Jeff and Stephen. Loving grandfather to Stephanie and her Jordan, Michelle and her Brandon, Zachary, Carter, and Adeline. Great-grandchildren, Julian, Layla, Chandler, Joni. A dear brother to Beatrice and her Aaron. Fond brother-in-law to Michael and Phyllis and Beverly. As you heard, a fond uncle, great-uncle to many nieces and nephews. That is a tremendous legacy. As I was thinking about what was shared with me about Wally's life and what I knew of him, I was thinking especially about this week's Torah portion and our ancestor Jacob, who has happened upon a place that was so desolate he had to use a rock for a pillow to sleep at night. And he has a dream, and in the dream he sees a ladder from the ground up to heaven, and he sees angels going up and down the ladder, and he hears God promising him that he will keep Jacob safe in his travels and return him safely home once again. And Jacob's response to this epiphany was to set up a pillar and to place oil on the pillar to mark it as a sacred spot. But more importantly, to dedicate a tenth of whatever he was able to acquire materially through experiences and other ways, that he would dedicate that to God. And our tradition teaches us that based upon this, that we are to approach life with a spirit of generosity. And as I was listening to the stories of Wally's life, he was a very generous person, generous with his love, generous with his knowledge, with his advice, with his kindness, and with his embrace. When we confront death of a loved one, we become conscious of time's steady flow, and we plead, as did the psalmist of old, Mimnot Yamenu Kein Hodev Navi Levav Chochmah. So teach us to number our days that we may get us a heart of wisdom. And yet how can one number one's days wisely? Is it a simple total of the days we spend in the world really significant? There are people who live their lives whose years well exceed the proverbial 70, and yet when they pass away, only a death notice in the newspaper serves to let the world know that this individual lived. Now, it's not simply the number of our days that one lives that is significant. Significant lies rather in the use that one makes of the hours granted. It is to experience what life has to offer, both its sorrows and its joys, its frustrations and its accomplishments. To become deeply applied his CPA mind to practically everything he did. He loved being a father. He really loved being a grandfather, though not being called Grandpa. He was Wally. He was an avid reader and a card player, and Wally actually knew what counted. It was not the number of days in your life, but how you fill them. And Wally filled his days with meaning, with family, with friends. When one has lived a life such as this, one can be grateful that God has granted one a heart of wisdom so that one might fill one's days with significance. Wally was blessed with a heart of wisdom, and his life had significance to his family, his friends, and his community. May his memory always be for a blessing, and to this let us say, Amen. I invite you to rise as you are able for the memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar HaKiyamazhirim, Et Nishmat Re'enu, Shalach Leolamo, Baal HaRachamim, Yastireu B'Seter Kanafav Leolamim, Vaitzror B'Tzor HaChaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Unachalato, V'yanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo, V'nomar, Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Wallace Christenholz, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and together we say, Amen. The dust returns to the earth as it was. The Spirit returns to God who gave it. It is only the house of the Spirit which we now lay within the earth, for the Spirit itself cannot die. Receive in mercy, O God, the soul of our departed Wally. Grant him that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. No human eye has seen, nor ear has heard, nor mind has grasped it. Still it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion. O God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand, that the pain which loss inflicts is the measure of a love stronger than death. Though we cry in the anguish of our hearts, may we be like children who know that their parent is near and who cling unafraid to the trusted hand. In the Spirit, O God, do we commit all that is precious to your keeping as we repeat words hallowed by the generations, the words of the Kaddish, which you can find also in the pamphlet you received here at the cemetery. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, B'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, B'agalau uv'izman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach leolam omei omaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei dekudsha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, Damiran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlam Rabbah min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, Imru Amen. Osei Shalom V'Romav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Imru Amen. May God grant peace to all who mourn the passing of Wallace Christenholz, and bring comfort to all who are bereaved among us. And together we say, Amen. At the end of the day, we gently tuck our children in for the night. At the end of a person's life, the last act of Gemilut Chasadim, the last act of loving kindness that we can do for him, is to cover his grave. The custom is to place 3 shovelfuls of earth within the grave and replace the shovel so that each person can fulfill the mitzvah with fullness of intention. In a moment, the cemetery workers will cover the vault. And before they do that, I will place some earth from the land of Israel, linking our service here, our dedication here, to our spiritual homeland.
I got it. After the service here, everyone is invited back to Phyllis and Michael Mitson's residence, 200 East Delaware Place, Unit 23A in Chicago. There's free guest parking available in the garage to the east of the entrance, and there is often street parking available. In a few minutes, the cover will be placed on. Everyone will have an opportunity to put some earth in, graze, and then you're welcome to go back to your cars. The service is completed at this point. Welcome to America. Covers put on. Upwards of 20 devices logged on during the service. One is a little bit of technical difficulty. I got all of your speakers went out, so I think it's the code, so I started filming it. So I'll upload it to Rabbi Chris. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a register book back there. If you haven't already signed it, please do so.
Friends, we're going to invite the immediate family to come forward and begin placing earth within the grave. You can use the earth that's in the pail or that is in the mound of earth. For everyone else who wishes to participate, please step forward.
There's also a shovel on this side. When you're done, place the shovel back in the earth. Don't pass it to the next person, please.